everyone, I'm Alison.
I'm Bryce, and
we're Better Half Reviews. And today we're talking about Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest. This is from Stonemaier Games. This is a reimagining of the original Libertalia with a bit of different tweaks to the game and obviously a different look.
So, in Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest, you are a sky pirate, and you're going on 3 different voyages. Each day in these voyages, you're sending down a crew member to go scout an island. They're going to do something and hopefully come back with some booty.
Some spoils.
And then the best pirate wins. So, that's it.
So, the game is very simple with playing it. The complexity comes from the cards. So, like he said, that you're going on different voyages, and so each day you're going to pick one pirate to put out onto the explorer board, I guess you could call it. I don't remember what it's really called.
I don't remember, but it's the main board.
Yeah.
But the trick is,
everybody has the same cards to start with.
everybody gets the same 6 cards. And so you're trying to make a decision based on the same 6 cards everybody has, and you're trying to guess what they're going to do with those cards, when they're going to play them. Depending on the type of spoils that are out on the board, you might be like, ooh, I need to play this card so I get a good spoil, or there's some bad spoil. I don't know. It's just, there's lots of complexity.
There's lots of different things that can influence your decision. So there are 40 total cards, and we start with 6, so everybody has the exact same. So you'll pick one, everybody, okay, flip it over, and then depending on the order of the cards, because they number 1 through 40, you place them out in order from smallest to largest.
And then you go through the actions on each of the cards. If it's a daytime action, you perform the action then.
If it's a dusk action, you're going to perform it later. So you go left to right, daytime action, and then you're going to go back over the cards, right to left, and do dusk actions and pick one of these little tiles that's on the board.
Yep. And then once you pick your tile, you retrieve your crew member, you put it back in your pirate ship in front of you, and then once everybody does that, you're going to do a nighttime action. So if your card or one of the tiles you pick up has something to do at night, you do that then.
So it sounds a little bit complex. It's not too much once you get it going. But the thing that is different with this is, so like you do start with the same 6 cards, but not everybody will play all the same cards typically. And then you start another round where you get another 6 cards, everybody gets the same 6, but now you have even more cards in your hand, so it starts to vary it up of what cards are going to be placed out when.
And then also the different rounds or the different voyages have a different number of days.
Yes.
So the first voyage has 3 or 4 days?
I think 4.
4. The second voyage has 5 days, and then the third voyage has 6 days.
Yep. There's 2 different things that we haven't talked about yet, and there's the doubloons and the reputation. So on the board, everybody starts at a certain reputation, and that determines how many doubloons you get at the beginning of the round. So if you're up really high, you may not get as many coins, but if you're down really low, you've been stealing some money and you have extra money to start with. But there's certain cards that you can play and different things that can happen that can move your reputation up and down, which could be advantageous to you for many different reasons. And there's ways to get more points, more doubloons, or less doubloons if you go way up high or way down low.
Some of the cards also affect how many doubloons you have, but at the end of the round, the doubloons you have get banked into your treasure chest, and you can't lose those doubloons anymore. They will go straight into your scoring. And then at the start of a new round, based on where your reputation is, you get that many doubloons. So you can only ever lose the doubloons that you have active in that round.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the person with the highest number of banked doubloons, aka your treasure, will be the winner. So there's lots of different strategy of timing of when you want to have certain doubloons or not, because some of your crew members could also lose you some of your doubloons, which is not good.
Or, based on where you are on the reputation track, it could give you a lot of doubloons,
yes,
which could be really nice.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing is, since you're all playing with the same cards, what if we put down, if we both put down the number 5 card? Whoever is higher up on the reputation track will go to the right of whoever else tied with them. And that kind of plays into some other things. We'll probably talk about that in a second.
I mean, we didn't really go in here's how you play a turn type of rules of the game, but...
You play a card.
But
yeah.
I mean, that's the gist of how you play. Is you pick a card, you place it down, you do an action, you pick up a tile
Potentially.
potentially, and then do it over again.
Yep.
So Libertalia Wins a Galecrest can actually be played 2-player, and you do that by adding this little piece to the board.
The midshipman. So something that is different with the original Libertalia, you couldn't play 2-player, but this new version has the midshipman to allow you to do that. And what makes it interesting is, so the midshipman, his number is 20.5. And if someone plays a card that's lower, you're going to put it here. If someone plays a higher, you put it right next to it. So if I put my card here, it's a 5 or something, and he puts like 22. The person who's directly next to it on this side has a bit of a disadvantage because this player, aka Bryce, is able to take off one of the tiles. So he could be like, oh, I'm going to get rid of, well, no, you would take that. And then he would get rid of a tile, and then I'd be left with whatever is there because there's only 3 tiles. So that adds an extra level of strategy into the game of like, okay, do I want to chance it being this person, or do I want to try to go for here? It's...
Well, and then there's also situations where both people end up on this side. And so it goes the midshipman's thing, which then, if it was like this, where this card, then me, then Allison would choose to take one off, but then I would choose a tile, and Allison would still get left with something.
Lots of strategy.
Yeah, or we could both end up on this side, and then that doesn't have any effects.
Anyway, I feel like that's it sounds way complex, but it's really not.
But it's really interesting how you could add this in and still get a full Libertalia experience, in my opinion.
Yes. So I feel like we're kind of moving over into our pros and cons section.
Yeah.
So yes, I do like the 2-player version of this game with typically games with like how this would be, and you wouldn't think it would work out well. But the way that they made the midshipman, it really adds like that extra strategy of like, okay, what number do I think they're going to put out? Do I want to try to like make sure I go higher or go lower, because that could change up if I get a good tile or a bad tile, or I don't know. It has a lot of depth of strategy, more than you would think.
Or if you're sitting there going, this is the first round of the game, or the first card we're going to play in the game, and sometimes it's like there's really only one card that makes sense to play, and it's like, if I play this card though, it's going to be the same number. So
but who has higher reputation?
Who has higher reputation is going to depend on who gets put next to the midshipman, which then does that make it a good card to play or not? So yeah, it's an interesting choice like that.
Yes.
I will say, I was surprised in however many games we've played, every single game there was at least one turn where everybody chose the same card.
I think that was typically during the first round.
It was typically during the first round. It did happen a couple times in like round 2, but I was surprised that it happened every game. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I was just surprised by it.
Yeah. I'll talk about that a little bit later, smidge in the cons, I guess. Something I wanted to say about the pros is I like that, and I feel like Stonemaier does this a lot, where the game, it's like super easy to just kind of get into, and then the more you play it, the more you can kind of see different layers of strategy and timing, and kind of like, oh, okay, I think this would be a good time to play this. Because you can get so focused on what your card is or the number, so you're kind of figuring out, okay, I get to activate my daytime ability, or you're trying to look at abilities that you can use later on when they're in your ship. But there's the aspect of going backwards and the dusk abilities and being able to draw one of the little tiles off of the board. I like the different layers that you can start to discover the more you play it, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't do this, I should do this instead. Like, I don't know.
Because sometimes there's these abilities, these daytime abilities, that's like, this would be really good, especially if I was, later or earlier, depending on the ability. But that could really mean, like, that's hurting you in the token, the token choosing. Because if you're later and there's a token where there's, like, the saber, which if someone chooses that, they could knock someone off that track, and that person's not going to get a token that round. Yep. Or you could be left with, like, a negative 3-point token, and you're like, well, this is sucks. Like, I was able to score a few points because of my daytime ability, but now I'm -3 points because of this token.
Yeah, so there's a lot more different strategy to the game than you would ultimately think. You can play this game and still have fun and not do tons of the strategy because something will still happen. But I appreciate that, like, you can play it with people who don't play as many games, or play it with gamers and they'll still be just as satisfied, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, since this is a re-implementation of a previous game, it looks completely different. So, we haven't played the original Libertalia. I know a little bit about it, but it's more like grungy, like pirates, and like kind of dark and brown. And I know a lot of people like said that they were really disappointed about how this game looks, and they liked the look of the original. And I'm like, are you kidding? I love how this looks. It's bright, it's blue, it's shiny, and I like that it's air pirates. What do they call them?
Sky pirates.
Sky pirates. I got there eventually. Thanks.
I agree. I liked the artwork in this. It reminded me of like Treasure Planet, the animated movie that probably is underrated, and no one knows about. But I don't know. It just I liked it. I thought it was really imaginative. Like all the different characters and their different looks and their different abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
This was really cool, in my opinion.
And another pro, it's a Stonemaier game, so the components and quality like really great, like the cards, the board, the treasure things, and of course these tiles, the little starburst tiles. They're very cool. I like them.
Well, and then also the insert to the game.
Yes.
It just, everything has a place. It's really easy to just be like, here's
your
stack.
stuff.
Here's the bag. Here's the board. Let's start playing.
It sets up super quick. And I feel like, yeah, that's basically all the positives that I could think of.
Yeah, I think we covered all the the pros that I could think of.
With variability, there's 40 cards in this, and I think there's way less than that in the original Libertalia. And then the board here has a daytime, or a clear skies and a stormy skies. So there's two different sides of the board, so there's more variability. And then you have these little, I don't know, rectangles that you can kind of like play on the clear side of the board, but then maybe put out stormy side of Saber and stormy side of Map. So you can really change up your game and it won't feel too samey.
Yeah, so the big difference between the daytime and nighttime side is the abilities that are on the different tokens that you can gather. So if you want to play a game with some daytime abilities and some nighttime abilities, you choose one side and then you can be like, oh, I want to change this one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like that about this game.
So now we'll move into the cons. This is just nitpicky, I guess. I really like having the little treasure chest for a little counter. And when I was putting it together, I was like, oh, there's a right side and a left side. And I was like, oh, that's really cool because they have it inverted, where it's like, oh, you just turn it this way, you turn it down to go higher. But then this one, you turn it down to go lower. That hurt my brain. Every time, I was like, originally when I put it together, I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. But every time I go to do my score and go up by another 10, I'm like, oh, wrong way. So it kind of bugged me more than I initially thought it would. I don't know. Is that just me?
I don't like it. I'm not going to say it's like that big of a con.
I know, that's why I said it was like nitpicky.
I always turn it the wrong way and go, ugh, okay, let me turn it all the way, or let me go back. It's like, ugh, whatever.
Yeah, like I get the concept was a good idea, but then like actually doing it, I'm like, I don't like it. And we talked about this a smidge, but sometimes the first round, it's like, there's really only one good card that you should play, and then there's a really good card that you should play second. And sometimes everybody's playing the same thing the first round. That does happen considerably enough. But I feel like after that first round, it gets a little bit more unique and varied.
I think it typically happens on the first turn of the round, if it happens in a later round.
It depends on the card.
Because you get 6 new cards.
Well, yeah.
And sometimes there's a new card that is just like,
nope.
This makes total sense to play first in this second round or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you'll have people playing like the same card again in the second round.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's possible.
I feel like you try to mitigate that by the other considerations.
Yes.
Like what tokens you're going to get.
Or where you are on the reputation.
Where you are on the reputation track. but sometimes it's just like the active ability or the passive, like the daytime, nighttime, whatever ability of that card is just so good that it's just like everybody ends up playing it.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, it's not a pro or a con. It's just something that was interesting.
Or just, something to be aware of.
Yeah.
Something else that I noticed, so when we first set up our game, we set it up incorrectly. Mm-hmm. And I noticed this was consistent. I went to Dice Tower West, and this was on the hot tables game, so it was set up all the time for people to play. I consistently saw everyone setting it up the exact same way incorrectly for setting up the other rounds, because you go on 3 voyages and there's different days for the voyages, and it's a little bit confusing because people were putting these token things on all of the days, and we did that too. And I feel like maybe there's just something that's just a little bit off that could have been corrected in the rules to make it more clear. That's just something to be aware of when you're setting it up. It's the number of days in Voyage 1, and the number of days in Voyage 2, and the number of days in Voyage 3 that increase.
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately doesn't really affect the gameplay unless you play all 6 days on the first voyage.
Yeah, which is what I think we attempted to do.
Well, no, we caught it. We caught it right before we played.
Yeah, we caught it, but it's like, oh, wait a second. But
you set it up wrong, and you might think like, oh, why did I set it up for days 5 and 6 when I didn't? When Voyage 1 is only 4 days.
Yeah.
And so you just have to think about it for a second and be like, oh wait, I only need to put the tokens out on 4 days because that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if the rules just aren't very clear on that point, but that seems like that's the only point the rules aren't clear on.
Yeah, because I thought it was maybe just us, but I consistently saw so many people doing it, and I was like, hey, by the way, that's not how you do it. Let me fix it for you. It wasn't just us. It's not just us.
I know.
But yeah, so other than that, basically all of our cons are little nitpicky things about this turning the wrong way or whatever, and the one misunderstanding with the rules that you can correct very quickly. I don't really have any other negatives. I
don't either. You're the only negative one this time.
What? It was just a nitpick. Anyway, so pretty much our overall thoughts is we like this game. I think it's fun. I like that you can play it with 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, 5-player, right? Or even 6.
I think it's up to 6.
Yeah, 6 players. You can play it with tons of people, and I think it's just as fun. I feel like the more players you have, the more crazy, interesting dynamic of a game. But I've still had fun at all the player counts that we've tried.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting game because you're trying to get in the heads of other people, and based on what they're doing, you're trying to think, okay, where are we on the reputation track? Who's more likely to pick up, the tokens that you need to get a set of, and who's more likely to just pick up the tokens that give you instant gratification points, or who's more likely to be kind of the vindictive person that's going to kick someone off the board.
So rude. So rude.
I just really like that aspect of the game, and you're just trying to get in everybody's head, and you're trying to just pick the best card that you can play at that point in time.
And it looks pretty, so that's a good plus. But anyway, so that's what we think about Libertalia. It's out on retail right now, and they do have fancy metal coins that you can get. We don't have those, we just have the regular cardboard ones, but they look super cool, so if you can do it, get them. All right. I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
Happy sailing.
Have fun.
Or air sailing. Happy shipping.
Maybe.
Nighttime.
I thought about
I know.
That. And the person directly to the left of the midshipman.
And that is the Doubloons and the Prestige. So on the board...
The Reputation.
Dang it! Nighttime!
Well, no,
Nighttime!
You were about to say night... Shaving?
Yes, shmee.
Nighttime, daytime?
Doubloons, not to be confused with Doubloons. Just play the game of nighttime, daytime. Short play.